Yo, what's going on? It's your boy Lionel, class of 2009, back with another episode of PV versus everybody. And listen, we back into it now. It's SWAC week. All right, it's SWAC week again. All right, we done got some out of conferences out the way. We done got the money game out the way. Listen, we should be hearing this all this weekend. All right. Up and down the stands, you feel me? You know what I'm saying? Just some pointing and rolling, you feel me? That's it. Just pointing and rolling, that's it. All weekend, all right? So, super excited, man, for today. We got some great things to talk about, man. Obviously, on the recap with Coach Heish Northern. But before I bring up my co-host for the evening, got to remind y'all, man, make sure y'all following us over on PV_versus_ everybody on Instagram and on Twitter. All right, that's where all things go down. That's when you get the news first, man. So you got to be following us over on both of those platforms. Also, listen, if you have not done so yet, go ahead and like the video. The like costs you nothing. Go ahead and like the video. If you aren't yet subscribed, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Because listen, we got some big things brewing, and the goal is 600 subs, and we're almost there, right? We're scratching toward our new goal of 600 subs, man. And so if you have not subscribed to the channel, but you've been enjoying the content, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, man. And I know, listen, it's a big week. It's a big week, right? Big game coming up, Jared says. It's a big week, right? And people keep talking about our home, you know what I'm saying? Like our home field advantage. Listen, first and foremost, you can't be worried about our home field advantage if you ain't got no home in the first place. All right. So first and foremost, you need to be hitting up PV alumni Jeff McKissick. All right. He's a Texas licensed loan officer with Fairway Independent Mortgage Company, and he'll help guide you seamlessly through the home buying process. Many people are unaware of their credit score, their financial situation, but he will help to develop a plan step by step, right, to improve your financial standing, making your dream of owning a home a reality sooner than you think. Jeff understands that your financial situation may not be perfect, but it's okay. The sooner y'all start the conversation, the sooner you can solve those problems, you know, like the credit issues, student loan debt, all that, right? But don't let the fear of achieving you hitting your heights hold you back, all right? From getting the home of your dreams. Perfect for your growing family or hosting those PV watch parties. Get started now on taking the first steps towards your new home and taking that next big step in your life. Don't delay. Talk with Jeff today so you can be in your home tomorrow. And Jeff looks forward to speaking with you very, very soon. Because I'm just saying, listen, you can't be worried about our home and you ain't got no home. All right, you know what I'm saying? That's all I'm saying, right? If you're trying to worry about our home and you ain't got no home yet, right? You know what I'm saying? So make sure you hit my boy Jeff up because, you know, he can help you with the process. And I want to just bring up my co-host first and foremost, man, Mr. Carey, Coach Heish Northern. How y'all doing, man? How did y'all enjoy the slate of games on yesterday?
I had a good time watching the ones that I could get to. We had an issue with the TV over on this end for a second, and then my son had a game, so I actually ended up listening to a couple of games while I'm sitting in the stands of my son's game.
That's good. That's good, Mr. Carey. I know you had a unique experience because you were one of those phantom fans that we have that we don't have, that don't travel and don't go to games, right?
Yes.
How was your experience this past week at East Lansing?
Oh, East Lansing. We brought the Texas heat with us. It was pretty hot, and they put us directly in the sun. But I enjoyed.
They should have. They should have.
Yeah, and I enjoyed the game. The fans kind of got me because I only got yelled at one time, and that was walking in the stadium. But other teams we played, it's been pretty brutal. But you know, they didn't really get after us. So it was interesting. So that was the only game I got to see because just like at our stadium, I couldn't get any data once everybody filled the stadium.
Oh, wow. Gotcha. So they had some little connectivity issues as well.
Yes.
Oh, man. So, man, listen, we got a full show for you guys. We appreciate y'all for jumping on. That white uniform is definitely fire. The new uniform that the team's been wearing is definitely on point. We appreciate that. Elvin, we're going to talk about the PV Fantasy Football on our midweek show. And listen, if you don't win, it's just your numbers ain't up there. All right, you gotta get your numbers up there. All right, you know what I'm saying? So, but we're gonna talk about that on our midweek show. You know what I mean? Go ahead and like the stream. Definitely like the stream, right? PV Nation week, right? We got beat Southern. Next 3 games, Southern Graham and Incarnate Word are definitely big games. You know what I'm saying? Make sure you hit the like button. And yeah, I appreciate you for checking out the transition. You know, so I'm trying to do what I do, right? I try to do what I do. But like I say, wash my shoes. So don't be worried about our home. And you ain't got no home. All right. You know what I'm saying? You can't be worried about our home. You ain't got no home yet. You feel me? But first and foremost, man, I want to ask y'all, you know, winner and who is your biggest winner and your biggest loser from yesterday's slate of games? So, you know, just give me one winner and one loser. All right. You know what I'm saying? I know you might have a lot of winners or a lot of losers, but I just want one.
I gotta go for my winner. I gotta pick Grambling.
Yes,
that was a big non-conference, and I didn't realize they were playing on the road. So that was a big win. Anytime you can beat a non-conference opponent on the road in overtime, because a lot of times, like I say, if you leave it close, some kind of way them flags find a way of helping the home team. Do you want me to go with my loser right now? You want to wait?
You can give me a loser too, because then we're gonna go into it more detail. But I'm just straight off top, you know, biggest. You don't got to go in super detail, but just biggest winner, biggest loser.
Hey man, the loser is my Jaguars. And I'm looking at as I'm looking at the comments, my sister being messy, talking about the loser is definitely Southern. That's my sister, so. But yeah, it's definitely the Jaguars, man.
Okay, Mr. Carey, who you got?
I have to agree with Coach. I think the winner was Grambling because it takes some grit to win those close or overtime games on the road, those out of conference games, because not saying they get home cooking, but they get home cooking, especially when it's close. So they gutted it out, that interception at the end, and I really was impressed with that. And then the winner, the loser, of course, was those Panthers with the dots on them.
What do you call them?
The polka dotted Panthers.
The polka dotted Panthers. Oh man, that's funny. Oh, that's hilarious. Now that's good. So I mean, y'all got Grambling for the big win this week. I think definitely, obviously, that was a huge out of conference win. Any SWAC out of conference win you can get, you got to take it, right? No matter how it come, no matter how I roll to you, right? Especially if it's a Southland team, because Southland is a conference we should be very, very competitive against, and we should be able to be getting wins over them, right? You know, I can understand maybe the top 1 or 2 teams in Southland being tough, because those teams are going to be ranked teams that have really, really good ball clubs, right? But after that, I think we should be able to be competitive against Southland teams, you know, as you know, in the SWAC. And so that was definitely a big win for Grambling. I don't feel like I don't got Southern as my biggest loser because I never thought Southern was gonna have a chance in the game in the first place. So I can't have them as my biggest loser. I'm gonna have to have, and obviously they won the game, which thankfully they won. Because listen, if they would have lost this game, we would have this would be a completely different conversation, right? But I got Alabama A&M as my biggest loser. Obviously Graham my biggest winner for the out of conference win, but Alabama A&M because NAIA Georgetown College, where is that even located again, right? You know what I'm saying? It's in Kentucky, by the way. But listen, them boys played tough, all right? And that game was a game all the way to the very end. And so, just starting off with that, man, wanting to get into it, but let's get straight to it first and foremost before we get into the SWAC. Just a recap of the MEAC and the independents. Obviously, a lot of games on this weekend. A lot of great football. Some teams had an opportunity to play against some comparable competition. Some guys played up. I think the biggest game that jumps out to me first and foremost when I saw the score was Hampton versus Norfolk State. 37-7. And Norfolk was a team that I was saying, man, they know who they are. They know what their identity is. But, man, they was not able to move the ball at all on the ground. I think Kevin King, who had been tearing it up the first three weeks, from week 0 to week 2, he had less than 20 yards rushing this game. And so Hampton was really able to stifle Norfolk's rushing attack. And, man, they were not able to do anything, man. Any thoughts from you guys? What games pops off to you first and foremost, from the MEAC or independents that stands out to you?
For a good while, that North Carolina Central game was pretty tight, and then the numbers took over for the Tar Heels. But other than that, I think, like they say, Chalk Hill, no upsets or big surprises. Like I said, I thought Morgan would have a chance to beat Ohio. That score 21-6. I knew their defense was going to keep them in the game, but unfortunately, they couldn't put up enough points on the offensive side. So it was, like I say, par for the course as far as I was concerned.
How did you feel about, because North Carolina, I think Central was up 7-0 in that first quarter. A lot of times, attrition kind of gets to you when you talk about a team that you're going up against an FBS opponent, right? A lot of times you see in the second half games start to kind of get away from you. How do you judge, like, when you're looking at these games as a coach and you go and say, man, we won the first quarter, right? 7-0. Maybe we lost the second quarter, 10-3, right? You know what I'm saying? And so it's tied at halftime, and then the second half, right, they scored 35 unanswered, right? How do you judge that? Obviously, at the end of the day, you didn't get the win, right? We all want to win the game if we can. But how do you go back and look back at that game afterwards? Because some people just see the 45-10 and say, oh, man, North Carolina handled North Carolina Central. But when you look at the game, as I always say, it's really a different story. You know what I'm saying?
A lot of times what I would do, I would go back and look and see, did they have a run or a spurt where they scored maybe 21 points in the span of 2 to 3 minutes, where their offense may score on you, then they kick the ball off, you go 3 and out, they may block a punt, run the punt back for a touchdown to get short field position, score quickly, kick it back off to you, and you, instead of just sort of selling the game down, you throw an interception. And then next thing you know, 21 points have been scored against you, and only 2 to 3 minutes have been run off the play clock, off the game clock. So that's the biggest thing I look for is do they have a run in them, and can we keep them from making a run within a short period of time? That's the biggest thing. And in those games, you'll see that happen from time to time, especially because their special teams players, in my opinion, they probably going to be all state guys. And your special team's going to be maybe some all-district guys. And that size, speed, strength advantage will show up more in the special teams instead of your ones versus ones.
Yeah.
That's really good. It makes a lot of sense, right? Because sometimes it's not necessarily mano a mano with these games, right? Apple to apples. So, it's really interesting to think, like, how do you kind of go back and look? And that makes sense, right? If you're able to hold teams pretty well and yeah, they scored, but I mean, they have to go, man, 10, 11 play drives, right? Instead of being able to pop off real plays, right? That means you was able to be in position, be solid on defense. Though they scored, right? It's like, man, they had to go long fields. It wasn't like, man, they were just getting big chunk yardage on you. So I think that makes a lot of sense, man. Kerry, for you, with the MEAC and Independence, any game pop off to you that kind of stands out for you from this past weekend?
Yes, the Hampton game, even though I didn't get to see it, I was really surprised they got that many points on Coach Odom's team, because I know when his back is against the wall, he usually gets those guys going. And like you said, I thought I saw in the highlights they couldn't establish the run game really like they wanted. So I know that kind of because if you can establish a run game, that's basically defense against the opposing team's offense. But if you're giving the ball back quick or having turnovers, that's where they have the opportunity to really, spread that score on you. And I just thought that they would have a better fight than that, because I think that the hot seat now for Coach Odoms might have a little flame under it now.
Got you, man.
Really tough.
You're talking about only 104 total yards for Norfolk on this past game, right? Time of possession, 36 minutes for Hampton, 23 minutes for Norfolk State, only 58 yards rushing, 46 yards passing, right, total. So literally, they were not able to do, basically anything in this game. 4 for 12 on third downs as well. And only had one turnover that was a fumble that they lost, right? So they had one turnover, but not this gargantuan amount of turnovers. You say, okay, I understand why they kept giving the ball away, right? It literally was just they were not effective at all against Hampton. And man, it's kind of surprising, because I'm sure Hampton was probably loading the box, but you got to be able to step back, man, and kind of complete a couple passes, or have a receiver that can be the guy, one-on-one, and get some yards and make them soften up. Otherwise, people, I know other MEAC teams are going to be looking at this game and say, hey, man, this Hampton just gave us basically the recipe for how to take care of Norfolk State. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I also want to ask about the South Carolina State game, right? Because even though obviously they lost that game, they were able to put up 14 points, right? We talk about some of those things that we look for against some of these bigger, FBS opponents and schools. South Carolina State was another game, another team, right? Just like, not in the same way as North Carolina Central, right? Because I think they were down 17-10 at halftime, right? Scored first, up 7-0 in the first quarter. South Carolina State did score in the second quarter, right? They were down 21-7 at halftime, right? Then 21-14 before those 21 unanswered Georgia Southern. Coach Northern, any thoughts about this game and kind of South Carolina State and being able to put up 14 points against a Georgia Southern school, that is an FBS opponent?
Nah, that sort of goes back to the runs that I was talking about. When you have a 21-14 game, and then the next thing you know, they score 21 unanswered. So that sort of goes back to exactly what I'm talking about. I didn't get a chance to see it. Georgia Southern has been a good program, even when they were at the FCS level. When Coach Fritz was over there, they were pretty good. So the score doesn't really surprise me, because I know a lot of times, especially I say when HBCUs, South Carolina State probably recruiting some of the same kids that Georgia Southern is recruiting. So a lot of times when you get in those matchups, they're going to try to put a little extra foot on your throat to almost say, like, why are you going to play there?
Yes.
And you see what we've done to them type of thing.
Nah, that makes a lot of sense, right? Because, and I was thinking about that too as well, when we talk about, some of these games, especially FCS, but also you're right? Even some of these lower tier FBS programs, we had that conversation with ULM and Jackson, right? Mm-hmm. Where a lot of those JUCO guys were being recruited by both programs. And so, yeah, that's going to be a really big thing, man. So as you see some of the other scores, I did see somebody mention about A&T. I know Delaware is in transition right now, right? So I do know they have the full allotment of scholarships that the FBS program will have, with 85 scholarships. So they are even in the CAA this year, but they can't actually go into postseason play, right? So, that team is in a transition phase to where they're really an FBS program playing FCS football right now. And Delaware already has been a good FCS program, right?
Yes.
You know what I mean? So A&T, probably wouldn't have never had a chance in that game anyway, right? So let's move on, man, to the SWAC scores this past week. As you see on the screen, 38-7 Alcorn over Edward Waters. You have Bethune-Cookman able to put up 31 points against Western Michigan, though they gave up 59. Then, of course, we had the big loss for Mississippi Valley after that game last week against Lamar over Murray State, 59-8. Alabama State defense, again, in every game, 12-7 against Sanford when that loss. Tennessee State beats UAPB 41-28. Of course, the Jackson Southern 33-15. Grambling, and we talked about that a little bit, 35-28 over Texas A&M Commerce. And then Alabama A&M 24-13 against Georgetown College, which they were in that game all the way into the fourth quarter. Let's start at the top, man, and kind of roll down. Alcorn was up 10-0 at halftime. 10-0 against Edward Waters at halftime. I think, and just listening to G and some of the Alcorn guys right now, they are really, really low on their offense. You know what I'm saying? And I really thought this was going to be a game where, man, you expect this game to come in, you really get rolling right offensively, and you can kind of like start putting some things together, right? Seeing what works well, right, to get ready for the McNeese game and build on top of that. But it's almost like, man, this game made them more discouraged, because of what they wasn't able to do, especially in those first couple of quarters. And when you look at the stat line, it really was a lot of the quarterback basically doing everything, right? He was really the running game, right? I don't think they had a running back over like 30 yards. And then he had some yards in the passing game, I think like 160, right? So what are y'all thoughts about this game with Alcorn and Edward Waters, and just about Alcorn so far this season?
Well, I look at it like almost like one of the SWAC schools going up to play a ULM, one of those type of schools where they gonna get off to probably a pretty decent start. Some of those kids gonna come in with a chip on their shoulder, feeling like they should have got an offer from the SWAC school, and they gonna play well until the numbers catch up with them as well. So you will want to get off to a better start, but a lot of those schools have pretty decent offensive and defensive linemen, and they skill position people are gonna be on par with SWAC play. So the numbers game catches up to them. But you would like to think that you are a little bit better. You should be able to either do what you want offensively. We should be able to run the ball when we want, throw the ball when we want, and not have any issues. And then hopefully on the defensive side of the ball, keep them from making big plays and getting that mojo going on their side of the ball.
Kerry, any thoughts about Alcorn?
Yeah, I agree with Coach Northern, because if they can keep it close, they do get fired up, and you know how mental football is. So if you feel like you're in it, and because you go in thinking there's no chance, but then when you give them a couple of licks and you're still in it, you're like, oh, well, we can go with them. And like Coach Northern said, the numbers game catches up with you. You have some players that could do some things, but then when you can keep rotating in your defensive lineman, offensive lineman, and the trenches is where you get caught up at when you're playing up a level, and that's the same thing that happens to them. And but you would have expected Alcorn to have a little faster start and be able to play, some other players by that second half. But if they were only up 10-0, they probably started the third quarter with the starters.
Oh yeah, definitely. I know that Vaughn, went pretty much. I know they allowed Macon to have had a few snaps, but really Vaughn really went the whole game. But it makes sense, like what Coach is saying too, right? It kind of reminds us of those kind of games we play against higher level competition. Some of those games early on, we're able to stay in the game, but then later on, it starts to wear out, right? Especially when you talk about the offense, defensive line, right, starting to lean on each other, and it starts to get away. And that's kind of what happened here with Alcorn against Edward Waters. So I think, I always said, at the end of the day, man, they have such a great schedule, set up that it's kind of like there's no point of panicking, right? Like, you got McNeese again next week. That's another game to try to get things together. And then after that, you got UAPB and Valley before you get into some of your tougher games. Right now, UAPB is a game that's going to be interesting because offensively, UAPB is looking a lot stronger than they were last year, right? So even if defensively they have some questions, they look like they can say, man, we can score with you, right? And so that's going to be an interesting game. But let's move to the Bethune-Cookman game. Obviously, 31 points on the board there. Gave up 59 in Western Michigan. They had 2 kickoff returns for touchdowns, right? 2 kickoff returns for touchdowns in that game. So what are y'all guys' thoughts on that? But
that's another one of those, you playing up, and Western Michigan has been known for having pretty good offensive. So that's sort of their calling card, putting up a lot of numbers lately. But for Bethune to put up 31, I don't care how you get them. It sort of keeps you in the game. But you would like to say, can my defense, hold them? We don't expect a shootout. But at the same time, 59 is a whether they getting them off special teams, their defense is getting some pick six. 59 is a whole lot of points to overcome.
No, definitely. I mean, at the end of the day, that's hard to keep up with, especially when you're able to put points on the board too, right? Bethune-Cookman's quarterback Cameron Ransom was 10 for 14, 116 yards, right? And they also had 139 yards on the ground rushing. So Ransom obviously led them in rushing with 44 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. Courtney Reese had 10 carries for 34 yards. And so they had Bazile had 6 carries, 23 yards. Cross Patton 5 for 18. So 139 total on the ground, 116 in the air. We talk about things that you can take from games. It almost reminds me of the Texas State Jackson State game last year, right? Where I think Texas State put up like 50 something. No, I think they put up like 60 or something, right? You know what I'm saying, on Jackson State last year. But Jackson was able to put up like 31 points, right? And so it's like, yeah, your defense, you kind of had some questions there, right, from the defensive standpoint. But offensively, you felt like, man, you were able to take something out of that game and say, okay, we feel like we have something on the offensive side of the ball. Any thoughts from this game, Mr. Carey, before we move on?
One thing I'd be curious about, because I didn't get to see the game, is how well was Bethune-Cookman able to flip the field? Or like if they scored 31 points, they had some kickoffs. Did they give up some long kickoff returns that set up short fields? Some kind of times that'll kind of catch up with you too, especially when you're playing up. Those bigger teams will have some really good skill players on, the special teams. So that's another thing that could be a factor when you were able to pretty much put some points on them. They could flip the field on you and get themselves in good scoring position and might not have that far to go. So, but it looked like that was an admirable effort, and they might need to be somebody to watch out for and game plan for that quarterback for their upcoming opponents.
Yeah, they had the ball for 33 minutes this game. It looks like Western Michigan really was just scoring at will. I mean, they only had the ball for 26 minutes, but yet put up 59 points. 189 rushing yards on 17 carries for Nixon and 2 touchdowns. It just was one of the backs, and then the quarterback was 15 for 19 for 305 yards and 3 touchdowns. I mean, that's 16 yards per pass, right? So they did a lot of damage really quickly. It seems, right, and obviously that's why Bethune was able to have a lot of chances to take cracks at it too. Let's talk a little bit about this Sanford game with Alabama State. Or before we get there, right? Was there? I kind of was a little shocked that Valley didn't put up a bigger fight against Murray State, only because I think Lamar is a little bit better team this year than they've been in the past years. Obviously, they had like 185 penalty yards, right? So we understand why Lamar allowed Valley to be in that game. We saw Lamar yesterday just beat Weber State, by the way, right? Who was a number 20 team in the country. So Lamar is a legit squad, right? But were you kind of surprised a little bit that Valley wasn't able to put up a little bit more of a legitimate fight against Murray State?
To be honest with you, I wasn't, because like a lot of times, even though they lost that game to Lamar, people around there probably would tell them, y'all played good type of deal. It was a moral victory. So
Gotcha. Right.
When you get those moral victories, you're still getting patted on the back, but the coaches still feel like, we left a lot on the field. we don't take any solace in the moral victory. So let's not get into that type of situation. So, but like I say, you're dealing with young men that sometimes coaches can tell them exactly what they need to hear, but they don't sort of want to hear it. And a so-called fan will tell them something and they'll agree with everything that was said. So I find no surprise in the score, but it's just a matter of focus. And then once again, that's one of those, if we can kick you while you're down, we're going to go ahead on and kick you. And then if they scored a lot of points early, what you'll see happening, guys start trying to do other guys' job and start bickering amongst each other instead of just saying, hey, let's settle down. Let's do our job first and see what happens, and then go from there.
Right. And yeah, this was a game where they put up 21 points in the first quarter, right? Yeah. So, they definitely were down quick. Also had another score and a field goal with 3:38 left. So they were down 31-0 in the second quarter before the touchdown that Valley put up with 21 seconds left to carry Ross. So, they were definitely down really big, right? And so I know that, they kept rolling throughout the rest of the game and put up that big 59 piece. So let's move on to the Alabama State-Sanford game. I think this is another game that shows that, one, Alabama State, but Coach Eddie Robinson has had a model for the last couple of years. And, we had the dynamic quarterback of Andrew Body who was coming in that really people looked and said, man, this is the spark that now the offensive side of the ball needed to now be able to win some of those games that were close losses, right? But at the end of the day, I think what we're seeing with this Sanford game, even last week with Miles, right, with that 24-3 win against Miles, is they still have a model that they say we can win games because we have a defense that can keep us in games, right? Almost similar to it's like the same Morgan State conversation we have in here with Alabama State. And Coach Northern, obviously, you being a defensive guy, what is your thoughts about this game at Alabama? So many people wrote them off after Bidey's gone, but like I say, you kind of step back and think, well, technically this is the same team that they've been for the last few years, no matter whether D. Davis was the quarterback, no matter whether I forgot my other guy who came in late in the season, right, was a quarterback, right, or whether Bidey's there or whether the O'Brien guys there. This is the team, right? This is the model, right? Yes. Like this fit the model. What was your thoughts about that in general?
And don't forget, at one time they had Miles Crowley there the same time and they had D. Davis. Right? So the thing about it is, like I say, they going back to the mid-2000 Prairie View teams where defense going to have to keep them in the game. Offense going to have to give them a couple scores. They're going to have to be sound in the kicking game. Can't give away anything. So, but like some people say, you have defense will travel. And a lot of people say they'd rather have a good defense than a good offense because just say if you go play in the rain, you go play when it's real cold. A lot of offenses don't function well in that type of weather or a windy game. So defense can play in any type of weather as long as they're not giving up big plays. So I think that's the biggest thing that they're going to have to hang their hat on. No big plays. And like I say, defensive touchdowns count as much as offensive touchdowns do. So they're going to have to find a way to turn the ball over, get a ball back to them. When we were pretty good on defense at Prairie View, we went for it a lot on fourth down. Me and Coach Sewell and the guys on defense, we'll tell Coach Frazier and Coach Bryant, like, hey, man, get your fourth down play ready. We're going to go for it, and we'll stop him. We have confidence that we're going to stop him no matter where you give him the ball. We used to say on the 1 of 99, it's our job to stop him. And that's the way Alabama State going to have to be. And they're going to have to know that that's how they're going to win football games.
And I guess that breeds really a different mentality, right? Because, it makes me think about the Nebraska team back in the day when they played again, when they had Ndamukong Suh on that team, right? And they played Texas in that championship game. If one thing I love is a defensive. I like seeing games with the offense going crazy, but one thing I love is when, man, you got a dominant defense and the game is close to where it's only one play that can break the game over. I love watching games like that, right? So it reminds me of that Nebraska team, of the Jets team back in the day, right? When you had Mark Sanchez a quarterback during those years, with Rex Ryan at coach, right? Where you're like, hey, listen, we are a defensive team, right? You know what I'm saying? We gonna win because we not gonna let you score. That's how we gonna win the game, right? You know what I'm saying? And so it does kind of breed a different mentality, though, when this is what we breed everything on. Everything is on us to not let the other team score. And I think that's what Alabama State has all across the board in their mindset. It's like, hey, we're going to be a team that's going to keep it low scoring, and we're going to grind you out. And we're gonna break your wheel down because you're not gonna be able to break. You so used to having big plays here and there, and we're not gonna allow any of that, and we just gonna break your wheel, right? You know what I'm saying? Mr. Carey, what's your thoughts about just that mentality that kind of Coach Robinson is showing that is not going from Alabama State, though the quarterback situation looks different than what we thought it was gonna look at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting. We can't really tell from the Samford game what they're going to do on offense. But where I find that interesting is a team that is defensive. If you can establish a run on them, then you're going to make the defense stay out there too much if you have an anemic offense.
That's a good point.
And that could get frustrating to the defense. And they get tired, and it'll be interesting to see how much depth they have at the front seven, because those are the guys that get tired when you start leaning on them. It's, basically what Prairie View did to Northwestern State. They kept leaning on them. And, eventually, and their offense kept going back out, so and it also isn't very good mentally for your defensive team when they know they play well, and then you go out and three and out, and they're right back out there.
That's a good point.
So I'd like to see how that plays out going forward, and to see if this 7 points is really representative of how they're going to be going forward.
Yeah, I think the stat that stands out right from the Samford game, based on even what you're saying there, Mr. Carey, is 120 rushing yards for Samford, right? On 47 rushing attempts, 2.6 yards per rush, right? So that means you can run the ball 4 times and it's not a first down, right? You see what I'm saying? Like, I mean, there's some teams out here that say, listen, I just need you to give me 3 1/4, right? You know what I'm saying? If you give me 3 1/4 every run, I'm good, because I know, hey, I'm gonna get a first down, right, every 3 runs. But that means that they are behind, right, the chains, even though they've stuck to the running game, right? Because they ran the ball 47 times, but only 2.7 a clip means that Alabama State was able to play well there, and then 5 of 17 on third down, meaning Alabama State also got off the field on third down very well, right? And so those, I think, going to be 2 big things to pay attention to what Alabama State is, like you say, who can actually gash them a couple times, right? And who can actually continue to stay on the field for third down, because now, like you say, we getting deeper into the bench, you know what I'm saying? And so that's going to be interesting moving forward. Now, this game is one that's really interesting to me because, we talked about at the beginning of the year Bethune-Cookman, as a team that can, step up and bite somebody, right? If Arkansas Pine Bluff can find an offense, which, listen, Tony Hole over there, we saw what he did with Grambling, right? And he's got Mekhi Hagens very comfortable right now in the first few games that we've seen. And this game against Tennessee State, an opponent that has handled them pretty well the last few years, to put up 28 points, right, in a valiant effort. Again, I don't think the game was necessarily ever in question, I would say, right, of course. But again, for them to get an offense rolling, he was 15 to 31, 276 yards, 3 touchdowns from Mekhi Hagens. You're able to put up 276 yards in the air with Javion Gibson, 5 catches, 149 yards and a touchdown. Now, the biggest difference is only 53 yards on the ground on 38 carries. That's 1.4, a run, right? And so because they were not able to establish their rushing game, I'm sure that's going to be a big reason we watch that game back, or why they wasn't able to stay in that game a lot more. But what's your thoughts just about UAPB so far, what you've seen this year, Kerry?
I haven't had a chance to actually watch them, but looking at the score, I'm definitely convinced that they're not the same as last year, because they were manhandled quite a bit last year. They gave up points and didn't score any points. This game, they basically were able to hang in there and score points. And their coach he's pretty inspirational. When he talks, he makes me puff up a little bit. So if they get some confidence, they're someone you might not want to sleep on. And once again, they got ranked pretty low So just like we have a chip on our shoulder about being ranked second in the West, they'll probably have a big chip on their shoulder that everybody has kind of ignored them. So they're going to be somebody to watch out for. And I think this is I hate those moral victories, but this one is a sign that things are looking up. And so you just pay attention to the trends, and it just appears that they're trending in the right direction. Because remember how tough they played. Who was the FBS they played? Was it they played
Arkansas?
Yeah. So they at least put up a fight with them too. So you not this good of a fight, but they put up a fight with them too. So it remains to see how this plays out at SWAC. But they probably came out of this game with some confidence. So it's going to be interesting going forward.
Coach, how do you look at this game when I know one thing that he's going to talk about, Coach Ham's going to talk about on Monday is 15 penalties for 121 yards, right? Because, again, right, when you mix those 15 penalties in the Florida game, that probably stifled some of those drives that they had, right? Maybe they had a run where they broke one for 8-9 yards, but it came back because of holding penalty, right? I didn't see the game specifically, but just looking and seeing those 15 penalties for 121 yards, let me know that, I know he's not going to be happy about that. But when I look in the second half, because I remember seeing the score and I saw it 38-28 in the third quarter. So that means, Tennessee State is still playing, right? That's a 10-point game with still more than 15 minutes left. That's still a game. And so when you look at the second half, they did give up 31 points in the first half, but, talk about, again, these moral victories, et cetera, right? But how do you look at this as a coach from a defensive standpoint when you say, man, this with Draylon Ellis and some of the dynamic receivers they got at Tennessee State to hold them to only 10 points in the second half, to be able to give your offense a chance to get back in the game? How do you look at that as a building block to build on as the UAPB continues to build toward whatever they're going to be this year in the SWAC?
The biggest thing with that I would go back and look at first is are our problems from a scheme standpoint, are our problems from a technique standpoint, or our problems from a personnel standpoint. If it's a personnel standpoint, either you're going to have to try to move some guys around or say, this is what we got, then you have to adjust your scheme. So if they playing man a good little bit and they're giving up big plays, then they may have to play more cover 4, cover 3. So you can change your scheme more to fit your personnel than you can to change your personnel to fit your scheme without it being an off season. So they have to go back and look at the drawing board and see what is the problem. Are we getting outflanked on the defensive side of the ball? Is it an alignment issue, or is it somebody not doing what they're supposed to do? So once you've solved that problem, then it's easier to find out, okay, how do we solve it? But if it's all three things, then you have some issues as a coach, and then you have to figure out back to the drawing board. And as a coach, I know Coach Hull is in his first year being at Pine Bluff, and I've been knowing Coach Hull since he coached high school ball in New Orleans. He gonna make you defend sideline to sideline and 50 yards vertical if he has that much. He's gonna always have somebody deep, always somebody shallow, good with the speed, sweep, and power run game. So they gonna get it going offensively, I think, if the coach let him do what he, I ain't gonna say want to do, but I think if they're able to do his scheme the way he wants it done, I think they're going, because it's going to be quarterback friendly, and he's going to find a way to put the ball in his playmaker's hands. So, but like saying, I used to tell people I couldn't coach the same way at Grambling that I did at Prairie View, because I was dealing with two different types of athletes, especially when I first got there. Like I said, I tell people I came from Grambling, where on the defensive side of the ball, I think we had 3 guys that ended up playing in the NFL. And when I got to Prairie View, we probably didn't have 3 guys the first year I got here that could have played at Grambling. So that's just you can't just say, okay, this is my playbook and this is what I'm going with. You got to make your playbook fit your people until you get the people that you really want to do everything that you want to do in your playbook.
No, that's good. So that even leads to another question, right? Before we get into these last 3 games, this is why my contention is always you can't necessarily bring a coach in and give them a 2-year, a 2-year deal, right? They don't. Do you really have enough time to really build your program right, and also not just build your program, but get the athletes in that fit your specific scheme and style, etc. And to me, that's kind of what you're saying here when you're saying, hey, when I come in here, this program, and I had the athletes that I need for my specific scheme, right? So I have my general scheme, but now I'm tweaking it based on the athletes that I have here. Once I get these guys in, you can see the full gamut, but that may be 3-4 years into the system or program. I mean, I know this is probably a full conversation that we probably could have on this, right? But just your general thoughts on that. You know, some of these schools that's kind of been really quick on pulling the rug from under these coaches.
Well, from a coach's standpoint, you have to look at it as part of the business nowadays.
Yeah. True.
You know, a lot of times the assistant coaches don't have contracts. They're at-will employees. And I can remember being at a place that I had a contract, but that contract wasn't worth more than a Walmart receipt in the back of my truck. Because at any time the head coach could come in and say, Heish, I appreciate you, but your services are no longer needed.
Right.
No 2-week notice is get your stuff out by the end of the day.
Wow.
So that's what some of those coaches are dealing with from a business standpoint. But at the end of the day, you have to make it to where you can get in and make some change immediately to get what you want done. And that's the way I see it. You know, the head coach, he probably a 4-year contract is a stretch at some schools nowadays, but at a minimum, he should go in with 4 years. And at some places, if you take the job late, if they've been struggling, if you've been having financial aid or academic issues, they should go in with a 5-year deal with no options. Because if you want to get it turned around, you got to let that person do what you brought them in to do.
Yeah. No, it makes perfect sense. You know what I'm saying, to me. So let's move on. We're gonna start right to left here because obviously the big game this past week was that Southern Jackson. So we'll end with that one. Alabama A&M, Georgetown College. Were you guys able to see any of that game, or you just kind of saw the floating box score on ESPN popping up?
Yeah, I didn't see any. I just saw the scores and was actually very, very surprised because I know Coach Minor, everywhere he's been able to put points on the board, but looked like since he lost Glass, that offense hadn't been able to click the way that he wants it to.
Yeah, and this was another game where you saw them use really 2 quarterbacks. They used 3, but really was 2 quarterbacks, right? So Quad Brown, who had a excellent game the game before against Kentucky State, was benched for Avion Smith, the transfer from the MEAC that came down to A&M in the spring. And so, I think they're again trying to figure out their quarterback situation. Now, the beauty was they were able to run the ball for 254 yards on the other day, passing 263 yards, right? But with all that said, man, Georgetown, though they only ran for 46 yards, they had 276 yards through the air. And they again, man, just continued to stay in the game throughout. It was 7-3 up in the first quarter. They were down 10-7 at halftime. At the end of the third quarter, it was 17-13. And that's when I had clicked over to start watching, that game on one of the screens. And they actually drove the ball down and had a chance to score in the red zone. End up not being able to score. They took a loss on, I think, second down. So ended up having to kick a field goal there, right? But, they were really close to making it a 17-17 game at that time. And so final score actually was 24-16. I got the wrong score there. Ended up 24-16 Alabama A&M. So they're really going to have to make a decision on quarterback. I think, man, it's like seeing the last couple of years, like Maynard has kind of gone back and forth with the quarterback situation. I almost feel like, man, you got to choose a guy and stick with him. You know what I mean? Otherwise, I don't know. It seemed like the same thing keeps coming up year after year with Alabama A&M. And I don't know if the guys, even in the program now, how they feel, right? Because you've seen what's happened before. Even if you've been in the program, you just coming, you kind of seen what has happened before. And that can also make guys play certain ways, right? Because it's almost like I'm so worried about if I'm going to be in the next series, you know what I'm saying, because of, my play, etc., that it can definitely be a mental thing. But I know you got to play above that. But that's just something that, I think that might be in the conscience.
One of the things, Coach Maynard played quarterback and played at a very high level in HBCU arena football. And sometimes guys that play quarterback, they're so hard on quarterbacks, it makes them hard to coach them sometimes because, it's just like a guy that's a good athlete. He can sort of tell you what to do, but can't show you how to do it. They just know how to do it. So sometimes for a quarterback coach, they just tell guys, and I've never seen Coach Maynard coach, but I know he's always put up numbers. So the process of getting his quarterbacks to play the way he wants them to may take a while. It may not look the same as other coaches because he played the position. There's a whole lot of guys coaching quarterbacks that probably never played quarterback in their life. So
that's true.
It's different when you played the position. You know how to do it, but teaching it and coaching it is two totally different things than playing it.
No, that's a very, very good point there, man. So it's I don't know what's gonna happen with Alabama right now, right? They got Austin P next week. I'm sure now there definitely not gonna be no favorites there. It's not looking good. Then they got Fam and Jackson after that, right?
Yeah,
this could be bad. I mean, this could be really bad early on. So let's move on. Listen, I was watching this Grambling Texas A&M Commerce game, and I'm gonna ask you, Mr. Carey, to share your thoughts here. I wanted to say 419 total yards for Commerce, only 247 yards from Grambling. That's 130 on the through the air and 117 rushing. And that was, and listen, Crawley was under 100 yards passing, even into like mid fourth quarter, right? He ended with 125 yards with 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Grambling only 3 of 14 on third down. I mean, that Texas A&M Commerce defense, played really well. But sometimes it just really felt like, man, just Graham's execution was off, right? Not even that Commerce just had such a great defense. It just felt like Grambling just wasn't clicking on all cylinders. You know what I'm saying? What were your thoughts on this game? Listen, I ain't got no. I was pulling for Texas A&M Commerce. I'm gonna be straight. I know Coach Northern gonna be looking at me crazy because SWAC is out of conference. We're supposed to go for each other. Listen,
no, he can't
remain. That PV was the only team that had an out-of-conference win against the PWI this year so far, right? Minus the MEAC wins, right? So our Commerce would make it. I could not be a Commerce fan because the coaches would have made me pull my hair out this past game. Because first of all, they turned the ball over 6 times. Yes. And then it's like they went for it on 4th down. This is the biggest one. They went for it a couple times. But the one with like a little bit over 2 minutes left, on like the 30-yard line, like maybe just your field goal kicker is just like not anything to bring out here. But man, you gotta try for the field goal here because you really put the game away if he makes the field goal.
But some teams they can't. And once again, I know I talk about Stewart every week, but sometimes it's not just the kicker. You don't trust the long snapper. And I've seen too many Prairie View teams where we could not trust the long snapper. So it's that combination that it makes you nervous because if you had the wrong kind of long snapper and he hikes it over the head and the other team gets it, it just, oh man, it is. So sometimes it's just worth it to go for it versus that. But wow, I didn't know it was that many turnovers and Grambling still had to go into overtime to beat them. That would be concerning. Because those were opportunities where they should have been able to extend the lead and get some separation.
Yeah, I mean, 3 turnovers for Grambling, 6 turnovers total for Texas A&M Commerce, including the one thrown in the overtime, right? Which I have no idea. I'm still trying to figure out who he's throwing the ball to because there was nobody there. Who are you?
Yeah, he missed that one. That was very interesting because I didn't see any of their jerseys near the defender.
Yeah, the only shot I saw was a low angle shot, but when you talk about the numbers, the amount of offense that Kingsville had, it goes back to what I was talking about last week. When you have a lot of turnovers, one team may have way more yards than the other because of how many times they getting the ball, the other team going back on offense. Grambling wasn't cashing in on the turnovers per se, but they were keeping A&M from Kingsville from scoring. So it's one of those types of, the 6 turnovers is a whole lot to try to overcome.
That's a lot.
And still win a ball game. And then you look at how much. So their offensive coaches are probably saying we moved the ball up and down the field, and then didn't cash it in. So they're looking at some things. Is it just poor quarterback play? Is it bad reads? Is it bad throws? But it's just one of those, when you turn it over, it sometimes it just comes in bunches, and it's almost like you say, it's nothing you can do. Tell guys hold on to the ball, take care of it. But quarterback trying to make a play, had somebody around his legs as he was rolling out. He was rolling out to the defensive left to his right hand, which he should have been able to, in my opinion, get enough on it to get it out of bounds, but he wasn't able to do that. So, but like I say, I was glad Grambling won. I've been knowing Coach Joseph, Coach Dooley, Coach Rollins. I've been knowing those guys a long time. Like I say, I spent more time in Grambling than I did on Southern's campus, if you don't count the time that I was in high school at Southern Lab. So, like I say, I'm always pull for places that I worked at, places that I played at. So I was definitely pulling for Grambling, to pull that game. And then for the conference, and to me, that's big for the conference, getting that win, because, like I say, I may be biased. I'm biased when it comes to people saying we can't coach. I take offense to that statement. But it's a lot of times you're gonna have a game like that, and you will take that win by 100.
No, for sure, definitely. Listen, they shouldn't be saying the SWAC can't coach out of this. They should be saying the Southland can't coach. Okay,
right.
So after that game, but yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like I say, you never apologize for a win, right? You know what I'm saying? 1 point, 7 points. Fluke, what, it doesn't matter. Listen, we took the win, we're gonna take the win, right? You know what I'm saying? Bad play, good play, the win, right? So definitely, Grambling getting that win is big for the SWAC, because like I say, right, we should be able to play against these Southland Conference teams. I think the Southland is in our region 1, right? You know what I'm saying? And that's a team when we talk about earlier, teams you recruit against, etc. I mean, this is definitely a league that all of us in the SWAC are recruiting against, right? You know what I'm saying? They're going after the same players that we're going after as well. And so I think it's big for us to be able to get those wins against the McNeeses, the Nichols, Commerce, etc. You know what I'm saying? And so Grambling's able to pull it out. Now, like I said earlier, listen, most time I'm going for the SWAC, but I ain't gonna lie. I ain't gonna lie. This game, I was not going for Grambling. All right. I was like, listen, Commerce, you already up. Might as well go and close the casket. All right. So it's one of them times I was like, I'm breaking ranks. Okay. You know what I'm saying? So now let's talk about this last one before we get into on the PV game, man. Coach Northern, I'm gonna let you go first here. What happened?
Hey man, I started to do like I do people in my family. When they start talking about stuff I don't want to talk about, I just and I tell my sister or my wife, my phone breaking up, I'll call you back. So, man, look, Jackson just played big boy football with them guys. They ran the ball, which I hadn't seen a lot of people do against Southern's defense, because they play so much 8-man box or 4-4 stack type of defense. A lot of people not able to run on them. But part of it was Southern was missing tackles at the line of scrimmage, and those what should have been 2-yard runs were turning into 8-yard runs. And then they got hit with a big play. And I'm looking at the game, at my son's game, and I see one guy go in motion, and I see the safety tell the other guy, like, you go with him, I got him. He points at the guy. Man, Jackson ran play action, and that guy wasn't looking at that man a bit more than, like you say, and they scored a big touchdown. That one touchdown changed a whole lot of the momentum because it was still early in the game. But at the end of the day, Jackson was able to lean on Southern. Southern's quarterback got hurt. Biden comes in, moves the ball down the field, but he had a couple turnovers. One was right at the end zone. Like I say, the good thing about Biden, he has a very strong arm. The bad thing about it, he has a very strong arm. He'll try to throw it down the hallway and think ain't nobody gonna touch it. His arm is that strong. But I think with the quarterback getting hurt, that took a whole lot out of Southern's what they thought they were gonna have, and then have to go back to a guy that you just benched last week. So
yeah,
but he did put up some good numbers, some decent numbers. But Southern couldn't get the running game going. And I think anytime you can run the ball, that's going to make it easier for you to throw the ball because you can run different concepts off of play action that you can't off of just straight drop back passes.
exactly.
In my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, being able to run the ball, it just opens up so much, right? You see that in the league, in NFL. You see that when you look at, the big FBS level football, right? It's the same, right? It's football across the board, right? You know what I'm saying? If you establish the run game, it just changes the dynamics, because kids and then you talking about college age kids too, right? NFL level, right? You still see guys, right, cheating and catching their eyes in the backfield, right? You know what I'm saying? So how much more college guys, right? You know what I'm saying? When you have established the run, that they gonna get caught in the same ways. And so, it's big, man. I think across the board, teams that are able to do that. Jackson was able to do that. And I think one thing Southern, I think early on right now that they're surprised about if they haven't been able to establish the run, right? So in this game, only 29 rushing yards. And I understand that they got down, right? You know what I'm saying? Throughout that first half, right? It was 23-3 at halftime. But man, only 29 rushing yards on 21 rushing attempts. That ain't even Mark Frederick like, right? You know what I'm saying? So there's something really interesting there just to see that how they not only that they did not establish the run, but they did not even stick to the run, right? To say, man, we're gonna keep sticking to the run and get back in this game by slowing this game down, right, and keeping Jackson on the sideline, giving our defense a chance to rest. It's like they almost just completely abandoned it. You know what I mean? And then to me, that was kind of shocking and surprising. I don't know, Mr. Carey, what your thoughts was as you were checking it out.
Yeah, I didn't get to see that one because we were, still trying to get out the stadium. But yeah, that game is surprisingly abandoned the run because I remember Coach Fredericks at Prairie View, and he would stick to that run no matter what. But we don't know if this is a different kind of offensive line or not. And that's where
that's the point.
Your concern kind of be. And also, if you can't run the ball, then pass blocking, probably not giving the quarterback much time. And I know T-Set had a really good game last week, but I didn't get to see the game, but I saw a picture of T-Set and it looked like he had either a boot or a big bag of ice on a lower leg. Mm-hmm. So that couldn't have been good. And Biden held his own, but like you said, it was they were prepared for T-Set to carry the load. So it's going to be interesting to see how they do going forward because they put the younger quarterback in front of Biden for a reason. So this is going to be, are they going to be limited, have to change the playbook? Maybe, they might grind it out even if they average 1.5 yards a carry and keep running the ball because you know how Coach Frederick is. If he doesn't trust you to throw it, you're going to run. And that's going to be interesting if they stick to that going forward because it's some defenses they're going to have to face in the SWAC that their front seven's pretty good. And if his offensive line is not what he really – because he just got there, so he don't have the offense get a chance to pick the offensive line that he wants for his system. So like Coach Northern said, he's going to have to adjust and throw more. So that's going to be interesting to see if he's able to do that with a quarterback that, he didn't have a lot of trust in.
Another thing you have to think about too, when you're running a quote unquote spread offense, when you don't have the quarterback run game to at least hurt people, he don't have to kill people, but at least he need to make them bleed every now and then. When you don't have that guy that you can run off your zone read, that's going to eliminate your power run game with your quarterback. It's going to eliminate midline. So some of those plays that he ran when he was at Prairie View, he can't run because those quarterbacks are not as athletic as the guy that he had at Prairie View. And at times, I think even he may have hampered them in some of the runs that he was able to make. So I think that in the future, they probably going to go more to an athletic quarterback, true. And T-Set is athletic, but like I say, he's not a killer. He going to hurt you more than he going to kill you if he has to run the ball. And then he's a slighter frame kid, so he can't take a whole lot of hits on the power read or the midline like some of the thicker guys can, or the older guys that had 3 years in the weight room that are pushing close to 200, 220 pounds. That kid probably still weigh 185 pounds. So that's something that they're going to have to address. But like you say, you got to have that element of run in your spread offense.
No, that's big. And I wanted to ask you too, not that I hope that this question gets answered, obviously, because we're about to talk about that, we got Southern next week. But if you were, right, in that position, how do you reel this in knowing that now the good thing you got a guy who was a seasoned guy at quarterback, right? There's not a younger guy who you benched and then now bring him back in, right? You got a seasoned guy, but you did just essentially move on from him, right? And now he's back in that position. You also have a defense that coming into the season that looked at themselves as this particular type defense, right? As a team who last year teams would say we really couldn't run the ball against you, and then you go get dominated, not by a FBS program or a team at high FCS, a team in your conference that you feel you should be able to play with. How do you now grab the reins of this team and settle them down, right? To get, because now Southern's about to go into the bulk of SWAC play now, right? You know what I'm saying? So now every other game that they play now, every game is a big loss moving forward. How do you settle them down right now to get them back focused and not allow? I always say, how do you not allow one loss to turn into 4 or 5? You know what I'm saying?
Oh wow.
I think what they're going to do is when they go to the film, they're going to show them a couple of things. If I'm on the defensive side of the ball, I'm going to show them how many tackles we missed, how many lows we had, how many yards they had after missed tackles. And we pretty much had a formula. If your effort is high, which means you don't have that many lows and you missing tackles, you can win a football game. If your effort is low and you missing tackles, you're going to lose because you don't have people that can, if I miss a tackle at the line of scrimmage, the guy coming right next to me, he may have my back per se. So you got to make sure that you are running to the football. If you miss a tackle, get right back up. And then the other thing that I'm going to look at is how many yards after missed tackles did we have? So I think if you can limit, we used to say if we can limit it to about 75 yards per game, which sounds like a lot of yards, but if you right around the ball, those yards, I would say, don't add up, but you got to make sure you limit them throughout the game. And then once you show them that, hey, our lows, players control lows, not coaches. The tackling is a two-way street because we may have to tackle more in practice, which sometimes you can't afford to do. And then the yards after missed tackle, there's players control that too, because that goes back to loafing. So if it's something that, just say if I as a coach, if we went over something and we did what I said do and it didn't work, I'll take those. But if you're not doing what you were taught to do, then that's on you as players. Then I got to figure, do I need to not play you or you only play in certain situations? How do we solve that problem?
That's good. That's good.
Yeah,
That makes sense, right? And I think film can literally change the trajectory of everything, right? Because sometimes some games you go into, you say, "Man, we're great," and the film shows you like, "No, listen, calm down," right? You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And you can come out of games like this and say, "Man, we're gonna be horrible, man," and you can like say, "No, listen, we just need to tweak a couple things, right? You know what I mean? And we'll be straight." Now, all that being said, they ain't gonna tweak nothing. All right, you know what I'm saying? It's gonna be even worse this week. You know what I
You
mean?
hoping, huh?
That's the real conversation there, though.
Yeah.
But you know, we just put it out there just in case there's a couple Southern fans that want some hope. We allow Coach Northern to give you a little hope, right? Then we rip it back from under you. All right, but let's keep it moving. Now we got a new segment, man. And I you know, we call it Northern Lights. You know what I'm saying? Many of y'all have been up north and seen, you know, the beauty of the Northern Lights, man. And so this is just an opportunity where we want to put the spotlight on Coach Northern, you know, just ask him about, you know, some specific things that he had in his experience. And so, you know, this is a big week, obviously, for us in the SWAC West, right? Like we talk about, these last 6 to 8 years, man, have been back and forth between, you know, Prairie View and Southern. And so you obviously a guy who played at Southern, right, and also has coached, you know what I'm saying, throughout the SWAC. So I just want to ask you, man, how was your experience, you know what I'm saying, turn back around and actually going against your alma mater, right? From a coaching standpoint. And I was, you know, you can also share, you know, what was your experience like, you know, at Southern, even playing against PV back in the day. But definitely, man, share your thoughts on, you know, how it was, you know, experiencing going back to play against the what do you call them, Kerry? You know what I'm saying? The Panthers with spots?
Yeah, the polka dotted Panthers.
How was your experience playing against the polka dotted Panthers?
Well, I tell you what, it was pretty different. So my redshirt freshman year, the first game I ever started was against Alcorn State University when they had Steve McNair at the quarterback spot. So our kicker gets hurt, and one of my high school coaches was on the staff at Southern. He was like, man, Northern could kick. So I end up going from being a starting free safety to probably one of the worst kickers in the SWAC. So a couple weeks later, we play Prairie View during the midst of the losing streak at Robinson Stadium on the back end of a hurricane, and it's still raining sideways down there. And we have to go back in the locker room, and we almost lost that game. We won it 12-6. Marino Chasm was our head coach, and he was saying, you know, he was like in the locker room, oh, homeboy, y'all embarrassing me. You got to know his voice. So he was like, man, y'all gonna have me on ESPN talking about how I'm gonna go home and look at my wife if we lose this game. So we ended up pulling it out 12-6 in the back of a hurricane. Then, you know, and then once we got good, when Coach Richardson came, I played defensive back. So a lot of times we would have a shutout going, and the shutout, our defense coordinator, he would not take the starting secondary out of the game, but we might be in there with the third string defensive line, third string linebackers, and you look at the sideline and the starters over there with their hats on talking to people in the stands, and I'm still on the field as the starting safety playing against Prairie View late in the ball game unless we gave up the shutout. And it's a totally different ball game when you're playing with starters and not with starters.
Right,
to put it light, back in those, because Prairie View, they always had for some reason, like they had the shortest, best short running backs in the world, and them jokers was running tough. And like I say, after 3 or 4 quarters of tackling them dudes, you know, you was like, man, coach, can it was almost like, can we come out? But he never would take us out. Now I'm gonna go to the coaching part when I was an assistant coach. So the very first time we went to Mumford Stadium, I was coaching, Coach Frazier, the head coach. You know, Southern's football field has a track around it. So we would put the benches sort of in the middle of the track to get away from the field and all that kind of stuff. So I'm talking to somebody else, and I look at the bench, and we had a lot of guys from DC on the team because that's where Coach Frazier and all. So they getting ready to go in the stands after somebody. So they're like, Coach, this dude keep effing with us back here. So long story short, I'm like, man, who y'all talking about? Man, it don't even matter. And some people have heard me tell it. It was somebody. It was basically one of my cousins that was a big Southern fan. So look, I tell him, I say, look here, man, these are my guys. If you don't leave my guys, which is the defense, alone, I'm gonna kick your A when we get to Grandma's house for Thanksgiving.
Grandma's house.
So look, true story. I have not seen that guy since that game.
What?
Yes. So we always laugh about it. So I asked one of my other cousins, like, where's such and such? I'm not gonna say his name. So I asked, like, where's such and such? He lives in Cyprus, off of Barker, Cyprus.
And he live in Cyprus, so he's literally down the street from you.
I have
then.
not seen that guy. So look, so we always laugh about that. And then look, the other story, when I was assistant coach, we almost beat Southern. No, we beat them. They were going in to score, and Quentin Spears stripped the ball from their wide receiver. That was a guy that I recruited. So he fumbled the ball, we recover, run the clock out. So when we recover the ball, it's maybe a minute or something left in the game. I run to the benches. My brother, I got one of my cousins at the game, and I run and I jump up, and I'm standing up on the top of the bench, and I'm cursing, but I'm saying, like, this still my SHI, whatever. This still my house, y'all. So I'm standing up on top of the bench because I'm happy as I don't know what. But I lost it a little bit because the defense came through and won the game for us.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
but that's one of the all-time, in my mind, like, man, Heish, you done lost it in Baton Rouge. So then when I became the head coach, probably the most disappointing loss by far and I think in my career, we lost to Southern. I want to say it might have been like 62-59. We had look, I'm back at home. I think they were having like the 20-year reunion from one of the years that I was on the championship team at Southern. So I'm seeing guys that I hadn't seen since we finished playing ball. I walked across the stage, all that type of stuff. And we were up a good little bit. Then we had a couple controversial calls. I think we had 15 penalties. They only had 3. We had a couple fumbles with everybody on our side thought forward progress had been stopped, all that kind of stuff. They get the ball. They make a play. We know they running a double reverse pass. We see it coming, and we yelling out, reverse, reverse. And we get around the quarterback's leg. He pitches the ball to somebody, and he throws the ball way downfield, and they end up scoring. And then we go to we have a chance. We miss a field goal at the end of regulation that would have won the game for us. We go to overtime and lose it. I want to say maybe in double or triple overtime. And the only thing, the thing that hurt me the most about that game was son walking on the field saying they cheated. They cheated.
He was little then.
Because he would be on the field with us 9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
So, that was one of probably the most disappointing loss in my time as being a head coach at Prairie View. And then the other one, the last time we played Southern in Old Blackshear Stadium, I remember my special team coach, Harry Williams, going through. Southern had Willie Quinn. I don't know if y'all remember him, but he was like this all-American.
Number 25, I remember him.
5'2", thick as I don't know what, kick return guy, fast as I don't know what, from Florida. We couldn't get Willie in school at Prairie View. We knew about him, couldn't get him in school. So Willie, coach is saying, look, man, he going to start to their bench 9 times out of 10, and he going to bring it all the way back. If you on our sideline, do not chase. He going to come back to you. Right. And, man, that joker started coming from like the MSC looked like, and he cut that sucker back down our sideline, and all I could think about, man, what would happen if I tackle this dude?
Not the Woody Hayes.
Hey, man, I wanted to tackle that boy so bad because all I can remember is Coach Williams telling him he gonna cut it back this way, y'all.
Right.
And he cut it back, and we lost that game by 10 points. I think it was 34-24 or something like that. But we had every chance, and Jerry didn't have his. Jerry had a day where he may have thrown like 3 or 4 interceptions, but every interception was he made the right read, but he may have just overshot it. Right. Undershot the throw, but we moved the ball up and down the field and just didn't win the ball game. But like I say, I got some good memories of being at Prairie View, going back to Mumford Stadium as a coach. I got some bad memories of being at Prairie View, going back to Mumford Stadium. But like I say, man, I think the Panther fans need to almost give themselves a challenge to see if they can get some some offside penalties on Southern's offense. I don't know if you could bring, like I tell you, we're gonna bring old school rocks in the bottle or pennies in the milk jug and make some noise or something to get it going. But I think I would have loved to see if Southern would have won last week, what Panther Stadium would look like this weekend, because Southern's alumni chapter in Houston, I want to say, is actually bigger than the one that's in Baton Rouge.
Baton Rouge, right? Yeah.
So it's I just like to say, I hope they still come out, but you know how sometimes jokers get, man, they might try to save them $50 or $60, but a lot of them still gonna come just to see. They know other people from Baton Rouge and Houston gonna be here.
Man, that's deep. Kerry, that took you down memory lane. Sound like.
Oh man, I remember that Willie Quinn.
Yes.
I've been in the sports forum. Somebody has him as his signature logo, and you can see him when he did just like Coach Northern. He went this way, he came back, he stopped, and he always comes back around the right. And he has everybody sucked to the corner. If he suck everybody to the corner, you're done. Because you can't even take the angle and get him. He was too short, too fast. And there was no getting him. He just
that's crazy.
Woof.
And it just really remind me of it just makes me think about just the SWAC, right? Of how much of the brotherhood, especially the coaching brotherhood, right, is from so many different schools. And I had a conversation with Coach Ryan when he came on the show about this as well, because he's from the same area. I'm from Ruston, Louisiana, right? I'm from Monroe. So both of us, obviously, we know Old Graham. We used to go to Grambling games all the time. So it's just so funny. It's like, man, how is that? Just the dynamics of, man, all your people actually went to Grambling, right? But now you coaching at Prairie View. You might have a guy who coaching on FAMU staff, right? But, his family went with the Bethune-Cookman, right? And it's like all over the SWAC is like that. And so it's just so interesting hearing these, these stories and those rivalries of you getting that win and coming back like, listen, this still my house. I ain't got on the colors, but this still my house, okay? Yep. Like, it's still mine. It don't matter, right? So it's still so funny, man, hearing it. And I think that's why I look at I think Southern right now is kind of like the Saints in Dallas. I almost look at it the same way, right? Like the New Orleans and Dallas is not a rivalry, right? You know what I'm saying? But there's just, because of the close proximity, because there's so many Cowboys fans that live in Louisiana and so many Louisianans that have moved to Texas, right? It's just one of those games that's like, listen, we ain't going to lose to y'all. Like it so becomes a game, right? That's a game. But even though it's not necessarily a rivalry game like Dallas and Washington or the Saints and the Falcons, right? And I kind of feel like that's kind of the same that we experienced through the last few years with Southern, because you got a lot of people from Louisiana who come to Prairie View, right? You got a lot of Southern people who live in Houston, so they back and forth with they work with PV alum, right? You know what I'm saying? Especially now since PV has started winning more, right? And so the conversation is different. You got a lot of alum who are married to people from Southern and from Prairie View, right? So it's like, it's just a lot of mingling and mixing, in this area. And I think that makes for the game to be, it makes for the game to be an important game, even though it's not necessarily a rivalry game, right? You know what I'm saying? And so I'm excited about, what's coming up for this weekend. And just for the two teams to get together and get it in, and for the two fan bases, I think this is a game that PV Nation also gets up for because of that close proximity. And I'm hoping that we get that home field advantage, this weekend, man. But yeah, that was Northern Lights, man. I hope you guys enjoyed that new segment, you know what I'm saying, that we're going to be bringing each and every week. Coach Northern has some awesome stories, man. And so, I think that's going to be dope. Oh, Jones is asking for that shirt, because that's the same question I asked him when he first come on. What's that shirt say, Coach Northern?
It says, I'm not yelling, this is my coach voice.
Oh man, that's so hilarious, man. So anyway, let's keep it going, man. So last game that we're gonna break down before we get into the game of the week, and also a game PV game from next week, Michigan State Prairie View. First and foremost for me, man, 40-0. I want to score, right? I feel like the only thing I would want to see on top of this is even if it was 40-3, I would have looked, and I just looked at the score, I say, we only gave up 40 points to Michigan. That would be the first question that come out of my mouth, right? Like, we only gave up 40 points to Michigan State, right? I mean, that already sounds like that sounds great, to me, right? We covered the spread, right? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So, what was your thoughts on the Michigan State game? Obviously, here's some of the numbers. Cam Peters was 9 of 17, 123 yards, 1 interception. Trajan Spiller, big 7 catches for 91 yards. Scooter Adams, 5 carries, 24 yards, and both Aiden Jones and Terrell Coleman had 6 tackles. So Aiden Childs was 12 of 19, 173 yards and a touchdown. Nate Carter with the big run for a touchdown was 8 carries, 91 and a touchdown. And then the receiver, Isaiah Johnson, had 2 receptions for 50 yards and 1 touchdown. Jordan Turner, 7 tackles, 1 sack, and one and a half tackles for a loss. What was your thoughts just overall from this Michigan State game, Coach Northern?
I think Prairie View's defense was flying to the ball at a lot of times. You see 2 and 3 guys on attack. It wasn't just solo tackles. The other thing I thought on the Prairie View's offense versus Michigan State defense, their defense at times just decided to play what we call cat ball, where you got that cat, everybody else go to the quarterback, and they just sort of overloaded. And if you think about it, a couple times when Peters was scrambling, normally he would be able to run away from some of those guys.
Yeah.
But when you're playing against guys that can match linebackers and defensive ends that can match your speed, now you see the difference in the ball game in terms of athleticism at quarterback and athleticism at defensive end. So I think that hurt Prairie View. I think he thought he would be able to get away and they could just lock down on a couple guys. But I thought Prairie View's defense gave a valiant effort. I know one of the long touchdowns I saw, a joker held one guy twice on the same play. Then they were blocking, one of the wide receivers was blocking, and it was a face mask. So it was 3 penalties at the point of attack, and I think the guy broke like a 60-something yard touchdown run. But, like I say, you got to expect that from time to time, but that was a big turning point because I think Prairie View just had, that was right after they missed the field goal, I want to say. And, man, I'm listening to the announcer. I say, man, they done jinxed this kid because, they were talking, oh, he hadn't missed one all year.
Yes.
I'm like, man, here come a doggone miss. And, it was just one of them things that happened. But I kept thinking they going to get back down there. They going to find a way to get in the end zone. I thought maybe on one of those long punts that they had or either a kickoff, we'd be able to, have a guy just pop one through there and be able to beat the kicker for a touchdown. But that didn't happen. But they fought. They played a lot longer than I thought some guys were going to play. But I was thinking, man, Prairie View defense ain't bad. And they stayed after it, especially in the run game for the most part.
No, that's good. Mr. Carey, what was your thoughts? Obviously, you were at the game, you know what I'm saying? So how was it seeing it, at, Spartan Stadium?
Spartan Stadium was interesting. And I got to see a lot because, due to some things going on, we kind of got there. We missed the tailgate and got there about maybe 30 minutes before the game. So we ended up parking in one of the parking garages a little further away. And first of all, just going in there, the tailgate is massive. And that was playing us. I was surprised at that. Going in, they have this area that they roped off, and it had to been 3,000 students in this line, 2,000 or 3,000. It was a lot. That line was really long, and it was really wide. And they hold them there, and then all the students come in at a certain time, and they put them, behind the visitors, and that was interesting. And like I told you earlier, their third down, the audio from that big bell tower that they ring through speakers. I mean, I know it's a canned audio, but it was really loud. And but what was a shocker to me was that was like a mojo game to me. We were real competitive, and then we lined up for the kick, and I said, "Oh, this is great. We can get on the board." And when we missed that kick, and I've never seen him miss a kick, that's when I said, "Oh man, the mojo is not good in this game." even that pick six was what 103 yards that we threw, and I just was shocked how he did it kind of like, you know, the guy for Quinn did it. He got that interception in the corner. He kind of stepped forward a little bit, but the whole offense was over to the left because of how we ran the play from that hash. So all he had to do was beat this one offensive tackle that was out there fighting with one of their line, not fighting, but he couldn't get away from that guy. And once he turned that corner, the offensive lineman was so occupied with the guy that he was blocking or hitting, he didn't even see that guy coming. And by the time he saw him, he couldn't catch him. Not 350 pounds, he couldn't catch him. So for FBS game, I believe that the pundits are going to have some talks about that game. The score doesn't reflect the flow of the game. And they're going to have some talks about that Michigan State game because even with that score, they didn't pull the starters as early as I thought they would. And that was really interesting as well. And so I just thought they got some breaks like that pick six, and but their offense didn't just dominate us like I thought they would. They, and not crying over spilled milk, but one long run that they got, I could clearly see the offensive tackle, which he was holding the right offensive tackle held all game. And I said, man, I wish we could bear hug like that because the defender was turned all the way around and he had him like this. And he couldn't turn and even try to make the play. And, if you got a guy sitting there that's benching 600 pounds and he grabbed you like that, you're just not going to get away. And you could, because I was behind that play and I could see him open up the edge when he turned that defensive end and bear hugged him. And that back went right on that edge. And, the defensive back was chasing somebody the other way. He couldn't turn around and get him in time. And, they had, a play or two like that where it was clearly holding, but, home cooking, which I didn't think they needed as a FBS team. But
I was saying, like, I think the holding is just different in Big Ten apparently because, it looks like they allow you to grab a little bit more,
yes.
What I'm saying, hold a little bit more than what we are used to and normally see in the SWAC. Because I think a lot of those we were SWAC officials, a lot of those would be called back. You know what I'm saying? But again, right, Big Ten, they may say, hey, we'll allow a little bit more hand fighting, a little bit more holding up here. And so we reffing how we normally ref if they was playing against a Michigan or Ohio State or whoever, right? You know what I'm saying? Let me get this caller in. 5238, you're live with us on the recap with Coach Heish Northern. State your name, where you calling from.
This is Jimmy Wilson in Houston.
Hey, Mr. Jimmy, how are you? What's your thoughts, man, that you want to share?
Well, Michigan State ran old school I formation power on us almost the whole game. What's your thoughts?
You said they went power formation. Turn us down in the background. Can you hear me?
I got you now. I said Michigan State ran I formation power plays almost the entire game.
Gotcha. Okay. How did you, from your vantage point, right, how do you think the defense held up? I know they ran for about 188 yards total, Michigan State did throughout this game. But what was your view of the defense and how they was able to hold up against that Michigan State offensive line and running game? If you can just listen to me in the phone, you'll be good because we can.
It's a delay.
You can turn the background down.
We were just a little bit too small.
Gotcha. Okay. Anything else you want to share with us?
No, that's it, man. Tell Coach Northern he did a good job with his interviews. I love watching him on the site on YouTube.
Awesome. Yeah, he hears you, man. We appreciate you for calling in and sharing your thoughts.
Yeah, thanks, Jimmy.
All right. Anybody else? Again, the calling number is low 516-253-3434. I want to ask you guys as well because I've been saying this from the first game, right? That I think the defense has played a lot better than people have been giving them credit for, right? I think people look at the 27 against Texas Southern, right, and just look at that number. They look at the 31 against Northwestern and just see 31. They look at 40 against Mid. They just see the 40, right? But again, we look at the Florida game, look at how they play. Like Coach Northern talked about how they're rallying to the ball as a team. They look a lot better than I feel like the scores are indicating. And especially, we've had, 3 pick sixes now as well, right? You know what I'm saying? So when you mix that in to the game as well, I think that factors in. I want to ask you guys also, how did you feel about the offense as a whole? This game period, to me, when I look at this team last year versus this team this year, last year you talk about an ACU game, you never even in the game, right? You don't get the win, and you're making a lot of mistakes. But now you got a Northwestern team where you made a lot of mistakes, but you were able to get out with a win. We just talked about Grambling being able to squeak out a win. You take it anytime. You don't apologize, right? And last year, SMU 69-0. It looks like you didn't even want to play the game, right? Whereas now you play against a Michigan State in the Big Ten, and it looks like you're fighting, right? And so even though the result isn't what we want, even though we weren't able to get on the board, that to me, what I'm looking at is saying, okay, this definitely seems like is a team with a different mentality and mindset than what I saw us have before. And so when I look at the offense, I'm looking at us being able to move the ball down the field, right? Yes, we didn't score, but us getting in field goal range and even missing that field goal, okay, not happy with that, but it shows you, okay, you're able to move the ball against a Power 4 team, right? Us also coming down again, we end up throwing that interception, right, that was returned, but that we got to, like, I think the 30-yard line, right, on that drive, right? So, okay, boom, we're able to move the ball down the field, get again and score. We're again in scoring range, right? That was something that we can hang our hats on. So what was your thoughts overall about just the offense as a whole?
Well, you had to figure they were, in my opinion, they were going to struggle unless you doing some things to get to the edge. But the Michigan State speed sort of negated the quarterback getting to the edge, making some plays. Your middle run game is going to be non-existent because they're going to be probably much bigger unless you run like a trap scheme or something like that where you can catch them getting upfield. But you don't expect a lot of run yards, but you have to run the balls just to say that you will. But if you try some of your running plays, that'll open up you getting to the edge with your quarterback on the bootlegs. If you can run some outside zone, but a lot of times when you're trying to run outside zone, their ends are going to be much bigger than your fullbacks or tight ends, so they're going to get back in a plus advantage situation. Their linebackers are going to be sort of too big for your wide receivers to come down the quote-unquote crack. So you just have to, like I say, just get in there and fight and run the ball just to say we're going to run it. If you can have 8 or 9 in the box, and sometimes you're going to say, well, we just going to knock our head against a brick wall. You just have to do that sometimes. But I'm telling you this week, and I know you were talking about, I think Prairie View's defense is going to play much better against Southern than they have played all year because of, number one, they playing against a former coach that's just left them. Coach Rock and Coach Fredericks, their relationship. So I think it's going to be Prairie View's defense going to be ready to step up to the challenge this week. But the offense last week, you like to say, sometimes it's size, speed is always going to be in their favor until you get to the skill position part.
Nah, I'm with you. And I want the last question I asked before we move on to next week, these games of the week. It seems that early on, and last year early on too as well, it seemed like we were having trouble really getting a lot of pressure, especially from that front four. Is there anything you would do to tweak that, that we can actually get a little bit more pressure, on the quarterbacks? Because obviously in the SWAC, a lot of guys aren't really able to handle the pressure well, right? If you're able to pressure them. Is there anything that you would tweak that you've seen so far, to help us, help that front four, whether it's blitzing or whatever it is, right? But, what are your thoughts on that?
I hadn't broken down film on it, but I would say I have to know what do I have on the back end, because a lot of people, you can want to bring pressure all you want, but if you don't have corners that can play man-to-man and stay on top of people, pressure is nothing, because all you're gonna do is get beat deep. Like say you won't die from a A bullet wound or a stab wound. You pick
Right.
Cuts.
That's
Right.
the one.
So and that's one thing you have to think about as a coach. How can I do this? Or what zone pressures can I bring? Or can I run some trap to the field and blitz from the field? So it's different things like that you have to think about as a coach. What can I do on the back end? Because everybody want to bring pressure, but you can bring pressure all you want. Then you have to look, does the other team have a good screen game? Does the other team have one guy that we have to double? So it's some things that you have to think about when you talk about bringing pressure. You may want to bring one other guy, but 6 and 7 man pressures you may not want to do against certain teams, especially if like I said, I know Southern has Davis over there. They have the kid from Zachary. I can't think of his name, but they got some jokers over there that you might not want to leave one-on-one. So you might we're gonna zone blitz this week. So you got to think about all that when it comes to pressure.
Nah, that's real. That's real. And so, let's talk about the games of the week, right? 2 games of the week this week. First and foremost, right, Jackson State going to Grambling. Definitely remember many of these games back in the day in the whole, super exciting, right? Jackson bringing the crowd, the band, Grambling being there. And so obviously this is going to be a big one. Now, this is a non-conference game, right? So it is an out-of-conference game, even though it's conference opponents, right? So this one won't cost anybody in the loss column as far as SWAC play is concerned, right? But obviously it's a big game, between two schools that have history, with one another, right? Two schools that have put many guys into the league. When you talk about big names, Grambling and Jackson are 2 of those names, and so it's always a big game, man. What's your thoughts, Kerry, on this game when you talk about this game next week and Grambling coming off the Commerce win, Jackson coming off a big win against Southern?
Well, first off, I don't like these games because if you guys are conference foes, I think all your games should count when you play each other. I think it's, kind of chicken to play a conference foe and say, okay, my bad, that don't count. But and then if we want the conference to get respect, we got to start playing these PWI FCS schools, because beating up each other and then say, oh, it doesn't count, doesn't do anything for anybody. But that aside, that's a whole show probably. But that aside, this just reminds me of participation trophies. So I guess that's why I don't like it. So, but this game, like to see which Miles Crowley shows up. And this JSU defense is going to be, pretty interesting to see against him. And, the JSU run game is going to let Grambling know what kind of front seven they are. So, but the thing is, man, this one's in the hole. That's what's going to make it interesting. I'm like, if we weren't playing Southern, I'd like to ride down the street to see this game, because this is going to be a challenge for them. They're going to bring their people, but it's still the hole. So I'm glad we play them in Dallas instead of going down there, because that's almost like before Valley got their turf, how bad it was to go there and deal with the big man-sized mosquitoes and bumpy grass and all that. Going to the hole is just no joke, So but I still think JSU will pull it out. But I want to see what kind of Crowley you're going to get in this game, and if he can light it up, then I give him a chance. But I almost kind of wonder how hard. Well, no, these are rivals. I was going to say I wonder how hard you're going to play when it doesn't count. But it counts to the fans, so they're going to play this one hard.
They're gonna get at it and get after it, right? You know what I'm saying? This really goes to kind of why this is another reason why I don't really like the D2 games, right? Because I feel like the D2 games don't really show you kind of who you are a lot of times. Especially it depends on the school, right? You know what I'm saying? If you're talking about a Miles, stronger program, right? You're talking about, some schools like that, right? That are, in Fayetteville States, and you talking about guys programs that are established, right? And so, better games. But a lot of these D2 games, I feel like, don't really show you really what you have. But one thing I will say, right, is, and why I think personally that I think Grambling is going to have just as much trouble with Jackson State as Southern had, is because Grambling, this last game against Texas and Commerce, one thing they couldn't do is run the ball, right? Against Tuskegee, which hasn't been a great program the last couple of years, you know one thing they couldn't do? Run the ball, right? Only 62 rushing yards against Tuskegee, right? Even though you look at the points that they put up and kind of what you saw Miles Crowley able to do, right? And so I think Grambling is going to have – I feel like the game is going to be very similar to the game we saw Jackson against Southern just yesterday. You know, Grambling offensive line looks very shaky as well against Tuskegee. You know, that's the reason they pulled Crowley out in the late night games, because he's really getting hit a lot, right? You know what I'm saying? So, you know, at the end of the day, I feel like they're going to have trouble establishing the run. So Jackson can kind of pin their ears on the defensive line and kind of always be, you know, focusing on the pass, which I felt also like kind of what Texas Southern did to us that first game, because we didn't try to establish the run, right? It's like, hey, I don't got to worry about the run game, right? It's all about getting after the quarterback, right? So that's my thought process on I think how this is going to go. I think Jackson is going to have a similar, you know, chance to establish the run against Grambling as well. We saw a lot of holes that Commerce was able to open up, you know, on yesterday as well. Jackson got probably more dynamic backs than Commerce has, right? With an established offensive line. You know, I feel that we're going to see a very similar game that we saw this week. But Coach Northern, obviously, you the only coach here. So what's your thoughts?
The only thing I say I disagree about is, number one, Crowley has played he got a few ball games under his belt. So he has started a whole season at Grambling. So he is not Biden, who's only started 2 games in his college career. He's not to set that was his first start. So he has some experience, and I don't care what, you know, Grambling is closer to Jackson State than it is Southern. So they could have a marble match on I-20 up there, and it's going to be heated. You know, it's like, I think Jackson State fans hate Southern more, but they've always felt, in my opinion, slighted because everybody knew about Eddie Robinson and Grambling State University, even when Jackson State was thumping them a few years in a row.
That's a good point.
Jackson don't have to take second seat to anybody when it comes to football or overall athletic program, but in the eyes of the United States of America, they second to Grambling when it comes to football.
That's facts.
So you can't argue that. But at the end of the day, Crowley has a little bit more under his belt. So, you know, I'm thinking the first team to 30 or 31 going. I don't think this is going to be a 24-20 game. I think this is going to be, you know, a 38-31 in the mid-30s. You got to get to 30 to win this ball, in my opinion. I'm not going to say who's going to win, but I think the first one to 30 or 31 going to win the game.
No, that's good. So you feel like it's going to be more of a shootout?
Yeah, not necessarily a shootout, but I don't think it's going to be 17-14. I think because of Grambling's quarterback play, and they got some good receivers, they're going to be able to make some plays down the field if Jackson State loads the box up to take away the run, which they very well may say, I'm going to take the running game away. Part of it, too, is Jackson State going to be able to run the ball probably, but is Grambling going to say, we're going to give you an 8-man box on certain downs, we're going to play some man, and we're going to communicate across the board, and we're going to make your quarterback have to make some plays. We may play some cover blitz and play cover 4, see the ball being thrown. So I think it's going to be – I still think both teams going to move the ball. I think special teams going to be tit for tat. So it's going to come down to quarterback play. And I think Grambling's quarterback, because of his experience, is probably going to help more than Southern quarterback helped them last week.
No, that's you making good points there, and I think that's something that Mr. Cam was bringing out here too, right? That Jackson did give up, I think, 352 passing yards, right, to Noah Bolden this last game. I know that's not typically Mark Frederick what he wants, and I know you're playing from behind too as well, right? So that's obviously going to have a big factor in that. But it seems like if there was a weakness that you point out with Jackson defense, it looks like it is on the back end versus that front seven. You know what I'm saying? That were able to be very stout. So it looks like, you got two teams that are looking at the opposite strengths, right? Jackson's strength is definitely their running game. Their more question is, can Jacoby Morgan, right, make plays in the passing game? Can McCoy make plays in the passing game? It seems like that's the question they have. Whereas Grambling on the other end is like, well, we believe and we know that Miles, can make these plays. I think one thing is going to come up, and I feel like that may be a factor in this game too as well. And saw people talked about it this past game as well, was it seemed that maybe, if a lot of your scheme, right, is kind of really pushing the ball down the field, then that also can kind of get you in trouble if Crawley doesn't get settled in early too. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's something that, I think we saw as well too when we talk about Juwan Pass, right? Back when he was here with Dooley, of not really being able to get settled into games early, by getting kind of, some of those, shorter intermediate routes or passes. So now he's kind of settled down. And I feel like that's kind of what we saw with Commerce this last game as well. A lot of, deep routes, right? Crawley really never got settled, right? I mean, he probably, I say maybe that fourth quarter got settled a little bit, you know what I mean? But really throughout the game, right, he was kind of not spot on, right? And I think if that happens this game, it can kind of be a similar, result that we saw, again this past week. But it's definitely going to be interesting. I also question whether Grambling's defense, man, I don't know if Grambling's defense, I go back to that Tuskegee game, right? Because watching that game, Tuskegee just missed a lot, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, there was a lot of misses Tuskegee had. They really probably could have had that be a little bit more of a game even early on if the quarterback is just on, right? But I think that's also what we're saying with Jacoby and Morgan as well, is like, can he make the throws for Jackson, right? But it's gonna be really interesting, man. I know Coach Heish, you know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna put you on the spot, you know what I mean, and ask you to pick a winner. But since I'm not gonna put you on the spot, I'm putting Mr. Carey on the spot, and ask you, you know what I mean, who you got, man, in this game.
It's in the hole. And if the right Crowley show up, I think they can get by JSU on this one. The only thing is, can they stop JSU's run game? And like you said, what kind of game will Morgan have at quarterback? So, but if they can rush, then it's they could pull one out in the hole if they can get their run game going. But if it turns into, Crowley could hit, a couple passes and get in the end zone, then and Jackson State has to play catch up, then I see Grambling pulling it off. So I would say right now I'm going to give the edge to Grambling.
I'm giving the edge to Grambling. Gotcha. Listen, I think JSU wins it by at least double digits. I think they're gonna be able to establish the run again. I don't know. Maybe I just don't believe in Crawley. Maybe I just don't believe in Crawley as much as others do. But I'm definitely giving JSU the nod on. I'm gonna say by 10, 13, something in that range. V says I should put you on the spot, Coach Northern. You know what I'm saying? I is this your cousin? Who is this?
Nah, that's my sister.
Oh, this your sister. Okay.
Hey, she's a Grambling alum, by the way.
Oh, she's a Grambling. Oh, she's a Grambling alum too. You know what? V, for you, right? But since you are also a Grambling alum and coached at Grambling too, he really should have an answer for you, to be honest. You know what I'm saying? Is Jackson State on his resume? I don't remember seeing Jackson State on his resume. So I don't know why this. I don't know why it's hard to give an answer.
This is my deal. I got away from picking, but if I had to pick who I'm pulling for Grambling, no doubt about it. But
that's not the question, Coach Northern.
I think if Grambling can stop the running game, because last week they had about 200 yards passing, 200 yards rushing. That's how they won the game.
Right.
If I'm Grambling, they're going to see an 8-man box every first down. They're going to see a 5-man pressure almost every first down. And if you beat me doing that, then I'm fine with that. But at the end of the day, I'm pulling for Grambling, but I won't say that they're going to win the game. I give you the keys to winning, but I'm not going to say that they're going to win.
Okay, gotcha. So let me interpret that for you. Jackson State
right
by 40. Now just playing.
Somebody clipping that one.
Yeah.
Not about 40 though, but Jackson State for the win. So let's go on to our second game of the week next week. It's the next big one, right? Prairie View versus Southern, right? You know what I'm saying? And I know I've been wearing this whole day because I don't know if y'all seen this. Y'all think this is a regular belt. This is actually not a regular belt, Coach Northern. Actually, KJ Black sent this to me because this is actually a vintage 2009 Prairie View belt that I was sent. You know what I'm saying? So this is a vintage belt for this weekend that we got from back in the day when y'all was roaming the campus. You know what I'm saying? So KJ sent this to me like, hey man, I just want you to have this on your show for this week so everybody know, you know, what kind of energy we on. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just say that before we start this specific segment, you know what I mean? But what are y'all thoughts, you know what I'm saying, about this game? Obviously Southern's coming off the loss to Jackson, Prairie View's coming off the loss to Michigan State. You know, what does each team need to do in order to pull out a victory, you know, in this game?
I think the key to it is going to be the defense for both teams. I think Prairie View's defense is going to be very amped up because they playing against, number one, they playing against Southern. Two, they playing against Coach Fredericks. And, you know, I know he was heavy in recruiting some of those guys that's now playing at Prairie View. So I think that's going to be the key to the game. Which defense can stop the run, because I think both schools, Coach Whedon and Coach Frederick, their offense is going to look the same against each other. Run, get to the edge on some bootlegs, some plate, some zone read with some throws to the flats. It's going to look like almost like an inter-squad scrimmage. The difference, Southern is more of a 4-2-5 defense, and Prairie View's more of a 3-4 that morphs into a 4-2-5, depending on how they play those ends. So it's going to look like an inter-squad scrimmage. Both teams have real good field goal kickers. I know Southern's at 50-something. Prairie View's hit from 54. So the kicking game is going to be on par. Both got young quarterbacks, so I see this one being a real close game. Now, this one might be a 20-18, 20-17 game with you better buckle your chin straps and have your mouthpiece in this game, because you're going to have to be able to stop the run. You're going to have to be able to tackle well in space. I think the biggest key is going to be who can get their wide receivers one-on-one and hit some double moves and make some big plays, because it's going to be tough sledding trying to run, and get first downs.
Richard says Noah Bolin's going to be running for flight at
Hey,
2 miles per hour.
Oh, man.
That's hilarious. Oh my goodness. Listen, that's the type of energy I need y'all to be on.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that energy. And, you know, before, you know, as we, Mr. Carey, get your thoughts, right? You know, this is one of my contentious, Coach Northern, that I have with, you know, with PV fan base is I think we too nice, right? You know what I'm saying?
Nice.
I think we can be cordial, right? And I think we can be respectable while also at the same time, like for example, Sunday from today all the way to like 9:30 on Saturday night. Nah, like you're gonna get the business. Like we not nice no more. Like, no, you can't come sit in this section. I don't care. You who? You married to who? I don't care. Go sit on that side of the field, right? You see what I'm saying? Like, I think we need a little bit more of that energy. You know what I'm saying? Again, not disrespectful, but kind of pushing the edge. I think that's what we need to kind of turn up and make like Panther State actually have a home field advantage, right? You know what I'm saying? Because it's kind of those things that get you to that place at that point, right? You know what I'm saying? But if you kind of just are, like I said, you can be respectable and be cool while at the same time like bantering, right? Like this my house, all that stuff, right? You know what I mean? So that's just a contention I had with PV Nation. So I'm all about this, Bolden running for his life at 2 miles an hour energy. I think we need more of this type of energy. You feel me? So, but Mr. Carey, what's your thoughts on the keys for this game?
Well, my thoughts are this is the perfect game to implement my idea of a student section behind the visitor bench. I think it would be perfect. But outside of that, what I like about this game is we went to Michigan State. I saw the center got a little dinged up. But what I like about this game is we had to deal with the speed and size of Michigan State. So it's kind of like, you know how you used to wear those ankle weights and after you took them off, you could run, jump faster? I think it's going to be similar to that because that quarterback from Michigan State was pretty fast off the edge, and their linemen, this is why I said their pundits from Michigan State are going to have some talks about that game, and some of it won't be positive because they expected to have 7-8 sacks on our quarterback in that game, and they only had Okay, we're gonna have to block him. He got me on that one. But I really believe that, and you know how Prairie View does, they don't really come out the bag on offense until around this game. So I believe that we're gonna see a lot of eye candy from Prairie View's offense, and that's gonna be some stuff that probably isn't on the film right now. So, and the defense, like you said, looking at the box score, you can't tell how hard the defense have been playing, but I think they're going to come out and they're going to play hard, even though they are familiar with Coach Fredericks. They're going to play hard, and the offense is going to play hard. You're going to see some people touch the ball this week that probably haven't touched it a lot, but they're going to touch it this week. But I just believe that Biden is not, close to the quarterback that we just played. And I think, we held him to under 200 yards passing, and he played quite a long time in that game. So I just believe that they're going to, and, really, except for a couple of big plays, we held their rush game pretty good. So, and we know Southern likes to run the ball, but we really stopped them at the line more times than I expected to. So this ought to be an interesting game. And like I said, they're going to be playing, at a certain speed that I think is going to be, it's just going to be different. So, and it's time for that streak to end where we've never beat them in Panther Stadium.
Yeah, it's been interesting over the last, I think 8 years, right? That, no home team has actually won this game over the last 8 years. So it's really been crazy, to see that's happening, right? Just back and forth. Richard says low end PV scores 28, high end 50. Coach Northern, what do you think about this comment here? You know what I'm
saying? Oh man. All right. Hey man, y'all making my day. I'm gonna just leave it at that. So some of the and look, I'm not real technical, but some of the comments and stuff. This is my first time ever seeing comments, so I'm over. If you see me on the side just laughing, I'm looking over there like, man. But the other thing that gets me as a coach is really funny for, like, say, people that quote unquote, in my opinion, don't take this the wrong way, fans that think they know football but don't know how to break down film, don't know formation, don't know box from spill, don't know trap from counter. It's funny to me when people say certain things that as a football person I know not to be true, but Man, it's just funny to me. I leave it at that. It's fun. I don't want to insult anybody, but it's hard for me to sit at games and listen to people complain about coaching and all that kind of stuff, or they might have an agenda because their son not playing or whatever it is they don't like about a person to say. But it's just funny to me to look at the comments and then how people sort of go at each other. I love smack talk. I love, like I say, if you ever come to my house and me and my sister together, you would really think that we don't like each other. So, but I love the back and forth. That's why I'm laughing, every now and then when I see some type of stuff. So it's nothing personal, but like I say, when you know football, I know bullcorn when I see something bullcorn. But it is what it is.
So what? And let me again. I'm the translation here. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna translate what he mean. Everybody say Southern gonna win this game and know what they're talking about. No, that's not what Coach Northern said. But that's how I interpret it. That's how I interpret it. So and boom, yeah, there's only 2 cross rivals in the SWAC right now. You know what I'm saying? You got FAM and Southern, you got Jackson and Alcorn. That's it. That's why the schedule always is misaligned, right? So there's never gonna be like a kind of simple way that the schedule works. You know what I'm saying? I've seen our schedule out, you know what I mean? Like, so that just is what it is, right? Because you only have 2 permanent cross rivals. The SWAC didn't give everybody a cross rival. It only gave, like, those 4 schools only have a cross rival specifically. Mm-hmm. Let's see. Jared said, I want to say PV by 17, but this game always is tricky, so it might be closer than I want. You know what I'm saying? Says Northern speaking facts. It's PV, PVU, or PVAMU. Never PV. Oh, that's facts. Get them correct. You know what I'm saying? And Richard also, interpreted Coach Northern when he said bullcorn, SU equal bullcorn. That's what he meant. You know what I'm saying? That's what he was trying to say. All right. But now, man, with that being said, Coach Northern, I'm not gonna put you on the spot again. I'm gonna let you slide. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna let you slide here. But Mr. Carey, I'm putting you on the spot. What you got for this game? What's your thought? Who takes it home?
Wow, that's I gotta you know what? Other than last week, I would say that PV has had the tougher schedule so far, and I think they're gonna be a little more battle tested. So I'm gonna go that it's gonna be PV in a close game, because also you got the mental part of this game coming up where Biden was pushed to the side for the younger quarterback. He got to get back in that role, and they got to get back into putting him in that starting spot when, it's kind of like, you pick the second girl and you wanted the other girl. So that, they kind of ain't the same with you. So he's going to get up for the game, but I think our defense is going to get up more. And if we can establish the run with our big body back, and get that run game going, it makes the clock run faster. And once you get a lead, it's going to be harder to catch up. And I just think, we beat them last year with a quarterback that the OC didn't, trust to throw the ball a lot, because remember, we threw the ball less than 11 times in some games. And so this game, we did have the pick sixes. But if we clean up the penalties and the turnovers, PV is going to take care of business in this game. And our backs are against the wall. If we lose this game, then, getting to the championship would be, now you need help and you need hope, and, they just can't lose this game.
Nah, only fight we're gonna be doing is on the field. You know what I'm saying? That's the only fighting we're gonna be doing this year. But like I say, that was some family business right there. You know what I mean? That wasn't even just like a university versus university thing. That was some family business going on. You know what I mean? In that situation. But yeah, definitely got to clean up the penalties. Like I say, I what I do feel like though, at the end of the day, is I think when I look at PV, I feel like there's so much upside, right? You know what I'm saying? Like there's a lot that's there. if we can put it together. You know what I'm saying? On the defensive side, also on the offensive side as well. So obviously, you already know I'm going for big PV. And Coach Northern, I was wondering if you had a belt that you can send me from the 2009, you know what I'm saying, that season too. Because like I was saying earlier, KJ Black sent me this one. This a vintage 2009 belt. All right, this vintage, vintage 2009. Y'all may not remember what happened in 2009. It's not. Listen, you gotta do your own research. I'm not gonna study your history for you. Okay, you gotta study your own history. It's vintage 2009 belt that KJ Black sent over. Listen, he was like, "Hey man, I just want you to have this belt for this week." So I think I'm gonna start collecting belts. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, Coach Whedon, man, gonna send me a belt from 2009. You know what I'm saying? I was Coach Northern, man, you can go shoot me a belt over. You feel me as well? I don't know. You be able to give me a belt before Saturday?
I should be able to.
I appreciate you because listen, the amount of belts I'm gonna need for this weekend. For what's about to happen. All right. Look, I'm trying to be nice with Coach Northern on the show. All right. You know,
yeah, we try to be nice.
I feel like we need to let him go to sleep, you know what I'm saying, so we can have the rest of this conversation. Because what's about to happen.
Hey, I know what it's gonna be, but like I say, I totally understand, man. Because like I say, I love it. When people see me, they think I'm the meanest, non-fun havingest person in the world. But look, I gets it in. I'm gonna talk about you. I'm gonna talk noise in the quietest way. I'm gonna make you feel bad. I used to have a coach that used to tell me, he was like, "Man, I hate reading emails from you," because I would send emails across campus. He say, "Man, you make people feel dumb reading this, bro." He's like, so I'm gonna put it on you. I'm gonna get mine in for sure.
Oh man, listen, we got.
I love smack talk though.
Oh no, listen, because I've been Coach. Listen, Coach, I've been warning people for a long time. You know what I'm saying? I seen All Script in the chat too. You know what I'm saying? He got one of these because he a fair weather fan. You know what I'm saying?
He a closet fan. He wants to be in.
He a closet fan. You know what I'm saying? But he got the shirt hung up because he know what's gonna happen too as well. But I'm just saying I need like 3 belts for this weekend because I know the first belt gonna break by the first quarter. Yeah. Then I need the second belt, you know what I'm saying, for the second and third. And Coach Northern, we need your belt for the last quarter, the fourth, because we're gonna wrap it up with the defensive effort, you know what I'm saying, and what we're gonna do the whole game. So I'm just saying we need like 3 belts, you know what I'm saying?
You really need to look into some of those military belts or the hunting belt, them thick cloth. Oh, they ain't good for whipping, but they good for other stuff.
Hey, listen, you're right. Listen, you getting us right, Coach Northern. See, that's why you here. You putting us on the right path. We need a hunting belt. We need to look into that. We gonna get this hunting belt together because we listen, and we need multiple because I know P's in the comment. We've been cordial and everything. We've been listen. P's my guy. He's still here because it's not November yet. Because as soon as that clock tick and it goes to Sunday on that week, he knows what's going on too, right? I'm just. It's like having cousins over. It's like you having cousins over. It just ain't your time yet. You just wait in the corner. You get on the sticks next, all right, and you get the business too. Okay, so we just taking one step at a time, right? But now, man, I appreciate y'all coming on. Appreciate you, Coach Northern, for coming and sharing. Man, your wisdom and your thoughts, man. And man, if y'all missed Northern Lights earlier, you missed the treat.
You missed a good one.
So, but each and every week, right, we're gonna have a different segment on Northern Lights as Coach Northern just shares with us some of his experience, right, and expertise and some of his stories, man, because I think he definitely got so many stories that can take us down memory lane just as a SWAC, conference as a whole, man. And so appreciate you, Mr. Carey, also who's chiming in from Michigan, by the way, one of our fans that don't travel,
don't travel. Yeah.
Not
really here, then.
You know what I'm saying? So one of these non-traveling PB fans in Michigan and East Lansing, right? But man, until then, say what you might as well use belts for some. Listen, man. Hey, listen. Just wait your turn. First of all, I hate people that try to skip the line. If there's one thing that annoys me, right, is people that be trying to skip line. Like I've been in the line for a minute, waiting my turn, Coach. I've been waiting my turn, and he want to skip. And you trying to skip to get a whooping too. Like that's crazy to me. It's like, why would you be? I would feel like you would wait your turn. Like, man, they gonna get tired by the time it come for me. Like, mom, dad, he ain't gonna get tired. Like he trying to skip the line to get a strong EA. Listen, my guy. November's coming. Just calm down. Just wait your turn, my guy. Wait your turn. So with that being said, man, we appreciate y'all all for jumping on. You know what I mean? It's gonna be a bad month for you. He put PVAMU. He made sure you put PVAM with the U on there. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
We appreciate y'all for jumping on, man. Appreciate all the love that's being shared. We'll be back next weekend on Sunday at 8 p.m. to break it all down again. So make sure y'all come back on and join us. But listen, get your belts. As a matter of fact, listen, all y'all coming to I know y'all be wearing y'all belts anyway. Just bring your belts, because this all I'm gonna be doing. Listen, every score is gonna be doing this all weekend, every weekend. Yep.
Well, I'm bringing an extra belt to knock down all them chicken feet. They're gonna be shaking at us
all weekend.
You know, they're gonna bring them chicken feet and be trying to shake them. Gotta get rid of that bad mojo.
I thought that was New Orleans. There's Baton Rouge bringing chicken feet now too.
They're bringing chicken feet, shaking it at our kicker.
But anyway, man, let me let y'all go before we stay too long, man. It's time to get up out of here. I'll holler at y'all, man. Y'all be good.
All right.